Hello, and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I'm your host, Chris DeLuca. This is Boom Broadcasting's one, first, and only baseball-centric podcast, and we are back here after a week off. We had the World Series recap show, and we took a week off because we had a very, very long season, and in that 2 weeks here that we had a lot of news come up, so we'll be talking about that. We'll be doing a just entire season recap show. We already did the World Series one, so it's time to just recap this season. We'll be covering the most disappointing teams, the best teams, the most surprising teams, and just kind of reviewing the predictions as well. But with that being said, we'll get right into the news here, and we're going to go start with not really the best news here, which we all kind of had a feeling that this was going to happen, but the indictment for Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz finally was formally announced for illegal sports betting. Emmanuel Clase was suspended earlier this season for the suspicion of throwing games, the suspicion for throwing pitches more so in prop bets. We talked about this earlier this season, right after it came out. When he was formally suspended, basically he was throwing, I want to say, first pitches, balls, and then every single time, essentially. And Luis Ortiz was also doing something similar here. Emmanuel Clase has not made a statement so far as of right now, the recording of this. He's currently out of country. Luis Ortiz, he got him on the scheme, is more than likely kind of what the DOJ right now is assuming, that Clase was the ringleader of this. Clase took a team-friendly deal, 5 years, $20 million, 6.4 a year, with a club option over the next 2 years, which obviously will not be picked up. So that really does lead you to the question is, why do this? Why do this at all? Why do this if you're Emmanuel Clase? Luis Ortiz, maybe so, not as much of a long-term MLB future. He was a part of a very good bullpen. He was good, but not to the Emmanuel Clase level. Obviously, Clase did not have the best year this year. Who knows how much the gambling had to do with that, or the throwing of games, but one can only assume. He was likely getting traded, and that would have probably meant a massive new contract. Even with the struggles in 2025, he still had a very, very high value to a bullpen-hungry team like the Yankees, the Dodgers. I mean, he was very likely going to get traded, considering Cleveland is very good at just kind of replacing relievers, and Clase had if this was 1975, he probably would have won the Cy Young last year, considering how he was as a closer and how the relief pitcher position was viewed back in the day. So very, very not great stuff. It's very concerning, especially when you've seen two now of the major sports, of the major four, have very, very big scandals with this. I mean, you're talking about the NBA here. Recently had the Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier were arrested. And one thing I just thought was very, very interesting is, while I want to say it was on Get Up or one of those ESPN shows. I haven't watched ESPN outside of Monday Night Football on SVP in many, many years. So one of those morning shows, I saw a clip where ESPN had an ESPN bet ad while they were talking about Billups and Rozier's arrests and indictments. So very, very symbolic. And I'll let you guys kind of say your own opinion on that, considering a lot of people do bet on sports, and it has been now federally legal, but more so the problem is how tied in it is. I mean, you're talking about the fact that you had Bally Sports was a thing. About half the MLB, more than half the MLB was Bally Sports, and they went bankrupt. Now it's FanDuel Sports. I mean, a lot of the MLB stations now are FanDuel. NHL, a lot of them are. So all you do is see the lines. That's all they have is the betting lines. Red Zone, they cut through that, between the 1 o'clock and the 4 o'clock window. They have DraftKings ad, they have promo codes, all of this. I mean, it's going to happen, and you're going to have to find a way to regulate it. But unfortunately, I don't think that anyone right now particularly wants to or cares to regulate it. So we hope that this does not become a theme. I feel bad for the Cleveland Guardians team as a team. I mean, I'm sure you feel very betrayed when you have a teammate throwing games, losing intentionally. And even if it doesn't lose games, he's still not performing at 100%. Both of them not performing to 100% of their abilities. So very, very sad stuff. I hate seeing it. And it upset me, as I'm sure it upset a lot of other MLB fans. But moving on to, just happier news, better news, someone getting hired for a new job, more interesting news, especially. Craig Stammen hired as the new Padres skipper, new manager in San Diego. He played for the Nats and the Padres. He was teammates with a lot of current guys. He played pretty recently here. I want to say 2022 was his last season. He was teammates with a few current guys such as Manny Machado, Yu Darvish, Cronenworth, Joe Musgrove, and Adrian Morjon. So a couple guys out there in the bullpen starting rotation, guys here in the infield as well. So it also really shows how long, by the way, this Padres core has been around too. I think that most definitely kind of is a symbol for that, how long they've been struggling to do something with said core. So it makes you wonder if this new managerial hire will make that core be a little bit better. It's interesting. It's not super common you see pitchers as managers, especially relief pitchers. He'll definitely be a player's manager, one can assume. I personally think he will be able to separate his, former teammate personality to manager personality. I think he can. I mean, you have guys who were there who played recently, like Stephen Vogt. I mean, obviously you have to be a player's guy. If you're a catcher, that's 90% of your job. And he's been doing very well. He went essentially only 1 year off. Stammen is a little bit different because the team that he played for last played for, is who he's managing. And that leaves the Rockies as the only team as of right now without a manager. And we are a week from Thanksgiving. So interesting stuff, and really does prove how fast managerial positions do fill up, by the way. But moving on to another interesting piece of news here is Shane Bieber, who had a fantastic postseason, a fantastic World Series, recovering from Tommy John surgery last year. He exercised his $16 million club option, player option, rather, which was not what I was expecting at all. Very, very low considering how quick he recovered. I mean, you see guys who have this severe of a surgery who come back and they miss 2 straight years. He came back and played relatively well. I mean, one can only assume that the Blue Jays are just kind of putting together a long-term deal for him at this point. But I just thought that was interesting, not something that I was expecting to happen. Something I was expecting to happen was the Seattle Mariners re-signing Josh Naylor, because that was something I said that was a very, very crucial part of them being able to continue their dominance, rather. We would love to see them as a dynasty, but playoff hopes. I mean, out of one of those guys they added at the deadline, being able to re-sign him was fantastic. 5 years at $92.5 million. Major part of their ALCS appearance and a good deadline pickup. Was one of those guys that they needed to retain to not regress. And they just need to add another big name too. I mean, it would be really nice. That rotation is there as long as it can stay healthy. But being able to bring back a bat like Josh Naylor is a really big deal. Ryan Yarbrough re-signs with the New York Yankees, hit a 4.36 ERA, 55 strikeouts, a 5.04 FIP in 2025. He's a right-handed pitcher, is kind of average this year, but still Yankees need bullpen help, so I don't hate it at all. The Royals got Cameron Meisner from the Tampa Bay Rays. He had a pretty solid year for the limited amount of at-bats that he had. He had a 0.7 WAR, 5 home runs, a 72 OPS plus. I specifically, remember him playing for the Durham Bulls for the past year and a half, 2 years or so. So it's pretty cool to see him hopefully get some more playing time in Kansas City. There's been a couple guys who have gone over there recently. We'll be talking a lot about the Royals here as we move more and more into the offseason. So be prepared for that. Kyle Hendricks announced his retirement. That was a Just an interesting player considering he was the last part of the 2016 World Series team, the Chicago Cubs. He was the last member that they had, obviously getting that standing ovation, his last start last year. He played 11 years with the Cubs from 2014 to 2024, and then the last year with Los Angeles Angels. And he had a pair of top 10 Cy Young finishes. So will he be the number one person you remember from the 2016 Cubs team? Absolutely not. But he was the last one out of there, and he had a very respectful career. And I hope that he has a really good retirement. Another guy we wish a nice retirement to is super utility man David Fletcher. Played for the Angels and the Braves. He was a positive WAR player, managing a 1.9 WAR in 2020. That's specifically where I remember him is in 2020 with that Angels team, and a 3.7 in 2019. And one of, if not the only players to go to Loyola Marymount University from what I can tell. I just kind of dug that up here when I was going through the script here in the notes. But yeah, happy retirement to Kyle Hendricks and David Fletcher. But we'll be moving on to a recap here. So we're just going to kind of go and we're going to talk about the best team in the regular season. The best team in the postseason was already determined. It was the Dodgers. Second best team was the Toronto Blue Jays. And the third best team in the postseason, you can debate between the Brewers or the Mariners. My argument would be the Mariners, but you can determine that how you want as well. But best team in the regular season, because that was the record that they had. It was a weird season. It was the Milwaukee Brewers. Another great season from Pat Murphy. We'll be talking about him when we get to the awards here in a couple minutes. Weird season. No one really stood out. Bryce Terang had a really, really good year. Freddie Peralta also having a breakout year, a guy I've been big on. He was on that list of guys I was big on going into this year. Mizorowski had a great start. He had that injury. Obviously, he was in the All-Star game, which was very controversial. But, yeah, Mizorowski, I think, has a very, very bright future. If I'm in a dynasty league, which I am, and I do have him because I picked him up after like his second start, I am keeping him. He is part of my keeper. Playoff win over a team that many considered better than them, including myself during the regular season, in the preseason, and even in the playoffs, the Chicago Cubs, they got that playoff win over them, and they just ran into a buzzsaw that was the Los Angeles Dodgers, who were just red hot and stayed hot all the way through the postseason, especially at that point through the wild card DS and NLCS, just red hot. World Series, obviously won, but running into a very, very good Toronto Blue Jays team. But shout out Milwaukee, shout out Pat Murphy. He'll get another shout out here in a couple minutes because of an award that he won that we predicted that he would. Most disappointing, and I don't think you guys really need to even take any guesses here of who that is. I mean, it's the New York Mets. I mean, missed the postseason on the last day, losing to the Miami Marlins. They should have never been in that position anyway in the first place. I mean, just completely fell off, was in a playoff position the entire year, then lost it at the end. Even if they did make it, I didn't see them going very far. I mean, assuming that they would have played the Dodgers, I think they would have had about the same performance that the Reds would have had. And you can call that out of pocket or whatever, so to speak, as we say on Boom Broadcasting here. But I think that they would have had the exact same performance against the Dodgers as the Reds did. 83 and 79 with the second largest payroll is simply inexcusable. It's comical. Obviously, everyone knows I'm not a Mets fan, but I'm going to say that is just beyond inexcusable. To have guys like Nimmo, and you sign Soto, the year you sign Soto, he goes from making the World Series to missing the playoffs. The lineup can be fantastic. It can be amazing. But the difference between them and teams financially around them, like the Dodgers, like the Blue Jays, like the Yankees and the Phillies, is that they have no legitimate pitching. Kodai Senga was supposed to be amazing. He was hurt. They moved him to the bullpen. They moved him to AAA. David Peterson was okay, but still not very, very good. Not what they needed. You couldn't have looked at this team in the regular or in spring training. You couldn't have looked at this team and said that they were going to be a 120 win team, 110 win, 105, whatever. You could have never looked at this team and said that, because you can have guys, you can have 5 WAR guys per year, But when you have negative WAR pitchers, it's going to balance itself out. And especially with how that bullpen was, you can have Lindor, Soto, and Nimmo offensively, but if you're giving up 4.4, almost 5 runs a game, and I want to say that was like 7th or so from the bottom, you won't win close games. I'm not surprised at all. I had them finishing better than this, but it doesn't surprise me that they didn't even come close to the World Series. But this, I mean, for them not to make the postseason is just simply inexcusable, and they need to make some serious changes. And we'll see if they do this offseason. I mean, Pete Alonso doesn't look like he really wants to come back. Wouldn't surprise me if he ended up in Boston or Houston or somewhere like that. But they're going to keep adding bats, but pitching, they're still really, really far away because they're going to have Peterson. If they roll out Peterson and Senga next year, I see the exact same thing happening for them. And if they're not willing to make changes and not willing to add pitchers, then they deserve it, honestly. But moving on to more happy team. I mean, a team that didn't have the best conclusion to their season, but a team that definitely had a better season because they made the World Series. My most surprising team is the Toronto Blue Jays. You know, every year I feel like we all pick them. And the year we didn't, they finally did something. They did something very, very positive. They did something that they couldn't do under those teams where they had, Jose Bautista and Josh Donaldson and that electric offense, the Edwin Encarnacion, all those guys from those years did something they couldn't do, but they did it with guys who had fantastic seasons, such as Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette, who would have definitely been up there, if not won it at MVP in the American League if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, winning that, second in hits, considering he only played like 92 games, we said. And then, of course, Alejandro Kirk, all stepping up, the rotation stepping up. I mean, Trey Savage will be fantastic, has been fantastic. Shane Bieber came back and was great. I mean, bullpen, very respectable. This is what you need to win a title. And I think Toronto, assuming that they keep everybody, will be right there next year. And I hope that they are, because this was the most entertaining World Series that I've seen probably in my life, or at least since like the 2011 World Series. That payroll is paying off. I want to say that they're 4th or so in payroll, because a lot of people were saying, as I believe I said in the last show too, been 2 weeks, a little bit fuzzy there, but a lot of people are saying this was David versus Goliath, and a lot of people are, oh, Dodgers in 4, Dodgers in 5, and that was ridiculous. I had Dodgers in 6, it went Dodgers in 7. This is not David versus Goliath. It never was. It is number 1 payroll versus, I want to say, the number 3 or number 4. So definitely not a magical, crazy Cinderella run. It would have been more of a Cinderella run if the Milwaukee Brewers made the World Series, way more. Even if the Brewers got swept, I would have said that was more of a Cinderella run than what the Blue Jays did. Not discounting it at all, but they deserve to be there, and they deserve to be there next year, assuming that they keep everybody and they continue doing what they're doing. So hats off to the Blue Jays, my most surprising 2025 team. And next, we're going to go over my predictions here. And we went through them, I want to say, back in February, March is when I put them out. We did National League, American League. We did awards. We did the standings. So, with the MVPs, I had Bobby Witt Jr. and Shohei Ohtani. So, Witt Jr. had a down year. I did have Judge in 2nd. I'll give myself that. Obviously, Ohtani having a historic year once again. I believe he set his career high in home runs, which is insane considering what he did last year. Judge, it's debatable. The Raleigh debate. Jason and I were talking about that here over the past couple days / week or so. I personally believe Raleigh deserved it because of him just doing it behind the plate and being able to, catch pretty much every game. And when he didn't catch, he was a DH. You constantly got to use your mind as a catcher, blah, blah, blah. Judge still very, very good as a DH and an outfielder. Both deserving. I just wish that Raleigh would have got it. But regardless of that, I didn't have Cal Raleigh anywhere near my MVP radar. So I got one right there. That's pretty awesome. Witt Jr. will still be up there. He'll definitely be in my top 5 finishing next year as well. Comeback players of the year. I had Ronald Acuna Jr. and Shane McClanahan, and I did very well on one and completely whiffed on the other. The one I whiffed on, I mean, Shane McClanahan barely played. He got hurt, and I want to say the third or so start he had, and DeGrom played a lot more games than I expected. So it's really nice to see Jacob DeGrom back and playing. Another guy whose career has just really kind of been slowed down by injuries. And Ronald Acuna Jr., just once he came back, he was fantastic, and I knew that he would be. That's why I said that 290 batting average, 21 home runs, a 3 WAR over the 95 games, and I just hope this continues. I hope he stays healthy because he's going to be in my MVP predictions somewhere there when we get there this spring. Rookie of the Year. Now, another one. I whiffed on both completely. I had Jackson Jobe and Dylan Cruz. Jobe didn't play much, only 10 games with a 4.22 ERA. I assumed he'd be much larger part of the Tigers' pitching situation with Skubal. Did not happen. Cruz got hurt. Another guy in Dynasty that I'm keeping played 85 games, and numbers were not eye-popping, but I think he'll bounce back. 352 slugging rather, and 79 OPS plus. Nick Kurtz, though, man, what a year! 290 batting average, 36 home runs, and 86 RBIs. Just one of the best rookie seasons I will ever see. One of many A's that have won Rookies of the Year. And then, of course, Drake Baldwin, a guy that we did not talk about very much this year. I don't think he got mentioned at all in Dugout Debrief this year at all. 3.3 WAR and 80 RBIs. Shout out to him for winning the National League National League Rookie of the Year. Shout out to Nick Kurtz winning the American League. Baldwin, though, so he got an opportunity. We didn't see Baldwin playing very much, but Sean Murphy got hurt. Murphy was out most of the year. So this will be interesting to see where the Braves go with this, with Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin. Cy Young, I absolutely airballed that. I had Pablo Lopez and Logan Webb, and that was an airball. Lopez got hurt, but Webb did lead the league in games started for the second consecutive season, and that was my logic. I said that when I recorded that show, 34 games started this year for Logan Webb, and I thought that if he had those numbers of just being able to continue his durability, that ERA would go down, because as long as you don't really, really mess up, the more innings you pitch, the more time you're out there, the lower your ERA will be. And a lot of people who are voting, the people that vote for these awards, that's a big thing that they look at. So Skubal, Skeens, should have guessed the obvious. I just didn't want to be boring, I guess. What are you going to do? What do you guys think happens with Skubal, by the way? We're going to be dedicating a large portion of next episode, more than likely, to what we think Skubal will do, to what we think Pete Alonso will do, what we think Bregman will do, what a lot of guys will do. So last one here, we have Manager of the Year, and we're back here talking about Pat Murphy, because I had him and I had Alex Cora, and I still will stand by these guesses. I think that Cora was perfectly fine of a guess. I think that he would have won it, or at least been close. Vote obviously did definitely deserve it, considering Cleveland went from not being anywhere in the division race to making the playoffs and almost getting a playoff win. Murphy, best team in baseball after losing a bunch of guys. Just another great year. My two favorite managers in the league, though, won this award, so I'm not mad that I missed half of this. So, Cora, I'm not a big fan of. He's a good manager, but like personality-wise, not really a big fan of him. But Stephen Vogt, absolutely love him. Pat Murphy, awesome manager. Love both those guys as baseball guys. Love to see it. Then we had our standings preview. We'll just kind of go over this really quickly. I'm actually kind of proud, though, of the predictions so far. So in the American League East, I had the Yankees winning the division. Then I had Boston and then Baltimore, and it turned out to be Toronto, which nobody got. Then the Yankees, then the Red Sox, all three making the playoffs. So almost got there. Baltimore's fall off was unprecedented, but also similar to the New York Mets with the pitching rotation that they had, should have been predictable. So what are you going to do? American League Central, I had the Cleveland Guardians, Kansas City Royals in second, and the Tigers in third, missing the playoffs. So I had the Guardians winning division, making the playoffs. Then I had the Royals in second place, also making the playoffs. So switched the Tigers and the Royals. I would have got it right. What are you going to do? Still, I'll consider myself pretty close, and I got the division winner on this one at least. The West. This is where I got the order sort of right, but I just got who made the playoffs wrong because I had a bunch of teams making it out of the East, which I think is a fair assumption because there's a lot of good teams in the American League East. I had the Texas Rangers as the only playoff team winning the division, and the Mariners followed by the Astros, neither of which making the playoffs. I had Seattle as the first team out of the playoffs, so at least I'll kind of give myself that. It obviously was the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers, so I was right that only one team from the division made the playoffs at least. I'll give myself that so I can pat myself on the back for the American League, at least somewhat. National League, I had the Phillies, Mets, and Braves, and it was the Phillies, Mets, and the Marlins. Okay, so we were not expecting this. Atlanta was never a factor. Obviously, the Braves, never really a factor this entire year. Injuries got him. Acuna came back. It was still just despite, there's only so much you can do. Schwellenbach got hurt. It was just a rough year down there in Atlanta. But Phillies won the division. I had the Mets making the playoffs as a wild card. Obviously missed that. But the Phillies clinched like first week of September or something crazy like that. So that was also kind of funny. National League Central, Brewers, Cubs, Reds. I had just had the Brewers making the playoffs, so I had the Cubs and the Reds missing. I got the order right. I just didn't have the teams making the playoffs right. So another pat on the back. I had Brewers, Cubs, and Reds. And finally, in the National League West, I had the Dodgers, Padres, and Diamondbacks. I had all three making the playoffs, and I had Dodgers being the best team in baseball. It was the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants. And there's only two, not three playoff teams. The Central got that other one. So I was close. So overall, I mean, really, I only completely airballed on one, which was Toronto, but everyone airballed on that one. Every team that was going to compete at least or be close to the playoffs, I got right. I got the two worst teams right, by the way. I said it would be the White Sox and the Rockies, and I said the Rockies would be the worst team this year, and I was right about that. I had the Marlins being like the third worst team. So again, something that I will, or the Marlins being the third worst team, Rockies being the worst, and White Sox being there in the middle. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy year. Just overall, 2025 was a wild season and ended with a World Series that was very, very deserving because the Game 7 went all the way through the postseason. It did kind of slow down here and there. Obviously, the NLCS not super competitive, but then American League Championship Series. Once it got to those last three games, man, pure cinema. I wish I could watch that forever. Same thing with the World Series, watch it over and over again. So for the first time, watch it over and over again. So great year, and we're looking forward to it. 2026, we'll be looking ahead to that here on Dugout Debrief, as we always do every offseason, breaking down every single team's what they should be doing, what they are doing, kind of where they are. We're going to check in on them. I don't get an opportunity to talk about, all 30 teams consistently. I mean, I'm only one guy, and I'm only usually recording a 20 to 45 minute show. So there are teams that I don't talk about very much, or if I do, it's usually not in the most positive light, such as the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm talking about, Paul Skeens, talking about what they should do with him, talking about how bad their ownership is. But there are also just teams that I don't talk about very much at all, like the Minnesota Twins, the Atlanta Braves. I didn't talk about them very much either, Washington Nationals. So that gives me an opportunity to talk about them a little bit more, which I really, really do like to be able to do because I love talking baseball. We're going to go do this trivia question. We're going to get out of here for the week, guys. And last week's trivia question, or 2 weeks ago, because I took that week off, which famous actor shares a name with an MLB player/players that participated in the last 6 World Series? And this is just crazy because there's been a guy with the same name, not the same guy, but in some capacity, a guy with the same name. Playing in the World Series past 6 of them. That's Will Smith, famous actor Will Smith, and Will Smith, the pitcher for the Rangers and the Braves, Will Smith, the catcher for the Dodgers as well. So this week's trivia question is, who has the most MVPs in a single career? Because Shohei Ohtani just got number 4, so he definitely separated himself from the pack. There's a lot of guys with 3, and he is the only guy that has 4. So we'll be asking that because the guy who is in first, who will be answering for that trivia question, has a lot more, but Ohtani might catch him. So Again, with that being said, this has been Dugout Debrief. I want to thank you guys again for tuning in. As I'm usually pretty consistent. Sometimes I do take 1 week off or so. I've missed a few episodes, but I always try and get something out there for you guys to watch and to listen to. Keep an eye out for the Gridiron Address. We should be making a comeback here on Boom Broadcasting on Sunday after the 4 o'clock games. Aaron and I, Jason's often there as well. We're talking some football because, I love football. Wearing the Steelers hat here, got the Dodgers shirt on, my two teams, repping it on my favorite sports broadcasting station, channel, anything social media out there. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.